A new Hillary Clinton docuseries on Hulu reminds Americans why she continues to be such a polarizing political figure. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter to accompany the information or the news of this docuseries, Hillary Clinton took several jabs at Bernie Sanders. Of course,
really?
This is what you can expect. Now, this is something that I knew was eventually gonna happen, and she is now even more aggressive than she was previously when it comes to these jabs at Bernie. So let me tell you exactly what's going on. Now, Lacey Rose over at The Hollywood Reporter wrote, in the doc, you're brutally honest with Sanders. And then she quotes Hillary Clinton as saying, he was in Congress for years. He had one senator support him. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to work with him. He's got nothing done. He was a career politician. Weird flex there. It's all just baloney. And I feel so bad that people got sucked into it. And then the reporter asks, that assessment still hold? And here's what she says. Yes, it does. I just want to remind you of what 538 published in March of 2016. Just a quick screenshot of an important headline. Americans' distaste for both Trump and Clinton is record-breaking. So after the election, if you guys can recall, there was a poll indicating that Bernie Sanders was the most popular politician in America, the most liked. And there's a reason for that. It's because he actually focused on issues that matter to them.
There is a part of her statement that's right though. Oh, that's interesting. Well, when she says nobody likes him, nobody wants to work with him, understand who she's referring to. Now, why would you work with Bernie Sanders? You know, if you're a dentist or an accountant out there, I mean, you don't have much of an opportunity. No, she's not referring to you. She's referring to people in Washington, people with power, and that is true. The people in power don't like Bernie Sanders because he points out their corruption. In fact, he barely points it out, but he does. He embarrasses them by not taking any of the corporate money that they do. He talks about income inequality. Their donors love income inequality and further income inequality, and so do those corrupt Democratic politicians. So when she said nobody likes him, she means nobody in Washington, nobody in the club likes Bernie Sanders. Now, that is not a problem for Bernie Sanders. That's why Bernie Sanders is so popular in the rest of the country. Another thing that Hillary Clinton's doing is calling all of you guys nobodies.
Exactly.
I mean, the reality is he's the most popular politician, first of all, in the country, second of all, in the Democratic Party. So she's just telling all the Democratic voters, you don't mean anything, you're a nobody. So you don't even exist. So when I talk about Bernie Sanders and no one liking him, you don't count. The huge percentage of the American population doesn't count. The only people who count are my buddies in power in Washington. All of you nobodies can go away. Well, I am a nobody and I'm proud to support Bernie Sanders.
What she doesn't realize, and this is a good thing, is that she unwittingly put out the best possible endorsement for him, right? Because in saying that nobody in the elitist class that she rubs elbows with, none of them like him. She's essentially giving everyone who already supports him or is considering supporting him more of a reason to stick by his side. Because what people are frustrated with, and one of the reasons why so many people actually went out and voted for Donald Trump, a con artist, is because he positioned himself as an outsider, someone who was anti-establishment. In saying that Bernie Sanders is not well liked within the establishment, Hillary Clinton is weirdly helping to garner support for him.
But they don't think so. Everybody in the media, instead of saying, whoa, that is so divisive. Whenever a progressive speaks out against another Democrat, they're like, divisive, what happened? Now Hillary Clinton tries to torpedo the leading Democrat in the race. He's leading in Iowa, New Hampshire, California, and very close to Nevada. All of a sudden, she's not divisive. Now remember, her supporters back in 2008 when she lost to Barack Obama, were called Pumas. Why? It stood for Party Unity My Ass. So she's back to Party Unity My Ass, but no one in the media calls her out. Instead, they're like, bravo, we all agree. No one in power, including us, like him.
I mean, the New York Times editorial board, a story we'll get to later, referred to Bernie Sanders as divisive at least twice in their endorsement for two candidates, Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar. Again, we'll get to that later. But let me give you more from this interview with The Hollywood Reporter. Now, Bernie Sanders did respond to Hillary Clinton saying that he is not well liked. And according to an NBC reporter, Twitter, I just asked Senator Sanders for his reaction to Hillary Clinton saying no one likes him, and he said, quote, "On a good day, my wife likes me, so let's clear the air on that one." He then pivoted to talking about impeachment. More tonight on NBC Nightly News. Okay, so you get a sense of him kind of poking fun at this. He's not taking it too seriously. Lacey Rose then asks Hillary Clinton, if he gets the nomination, will you endorse and campaign for him? And here's what she says, and I think this is incredibly important given the pressure from the establishment to vote blue no matter what, right? You gotta get Trump out. "I'm not going to go there yet. We're still in a very vigorous primary season. I will say, however, that it's not only him, it's the culture around him. It's his leadership team, it's his prominent supporters, it's his online Bernie bros and their relentless attacks on lots of his competitors, particularly the women." So Cenk, I'm gonna let you jump in a second, but I wanna make a point about who Hillary Clinton is and how she campaigned. Because when she was campaigning against Barack Obama in 2008, she kept referring to him, her campaign kept referring to him and his supporters as sexist. It's sexist, it's sexist, okay? So before the Bernie bro argument was being used by the Hillary camp, there was an Obama bro argument used by the Hillary camp. In fact, Hillary Clinton was so vicious in her campaigning against Barack Obama that this is what she did. I talked about this on a recent appearance on Cuomo. There's a lot of emphasis, a lot of, in my opinion, defamatory comments about how Bernie Sanders is allegedly running a dirty campaign. However, there isn't a single example of him talking about someone's character in a negative way or attacking someone's personality or doing any type of character assassination. All of his emphasis has been on policy, and we are in the middle of a primary. In a primary, you are supposed to emphasize the differences in policy proposals. And the mere fact that he has done that has gotten him in trouble for some reason, when in the past, actual dirty politics on the left have been dismissed.
I mean,
come on. Hillary Clinton released a picture of Barack Obama in 2008 where he's wearing a turban, and it was during his trip to Kenya. She purposely did that in an effort to paint him as a Muslim.
Bernie Sanders?
I bring that up because Bernie Sanders would never, ever do something like that, but he still gets characterized as someone who plays dirty politics. It's disgusting.
Okay, we actually have that picture. We're gonna show it to you. So Hillary's team, people later thought that the Republicans released this. No, Hillary Clinton's team released this photo like, look at Barack Hussein Obama. That's the kind of dirty politics the establishment plays. By the way, it was worse than Obama bros. Bernie bros is alliterative. No, back then they didn't call them bros. They called them Obama boys, which is way worse. Okay, so she's played that dirty trick 1,000 times, including on Barack Obama, who she now pretends to support, but she tried to torpedo in vicious ways. So now, before we even get to the gender angle, wait. You're not gonna go there yet on supporting Bernie Sanders if he's the nominee? So that means, by definition, you might not. So who would you support? Donald Trump? That's an open question for you?
Of course it is.
That's unbelievable. After all this, it's still unbelievable. But hold on, she not only says that, but I want you to remember the context. Bernie Sanders did 39 rallies for her after he lost. 39! She had done 12 appearances for Obama. Sanders did 39 gigantic rallies for Hillary Clinton. But no good deed goes unpunished. Now she turns around and goes, oh, I demanded loyalty from you. And by the way, you gave it to me. And you took some heat for it too, by the way, from some progressives. Now, they will not be returned at all. In fact, at the most crucial time, right before Iowa, I will try to sink you.
Look, I think that you're either forgetting something or you're being dishonest here. Because you're not surprised by this. In fact, and I know you're gonna love this, you made a prediction back in March of last year. And I wanna show you that prediction.
Okay, look, it's always, you're right that I have said things like this in the past, and I don't remember this clip at all that we were about to show you, okay? But after all that they have said about unity, after all that they have said, Bernie, and the media has asked them every single time, if you lose, are you gonna make sure that you support the candidate, right? but they never ask the others. Finally, Hillary Clinton gets asked, and it's I don't know, maybe not though, maybe not. Maybe I support Trump.
Well, here's Cenk from March of 2019 talking about what is likely to happen if Bernie Sanders were to be the nominee.
They would rather have a Republican in office and continue the corruption than to have Bernie Sanders or a progressive in office where they would end the power of money in politics. I guarantee you, a lot of the establishment is gonna pull up stakes and do the most hypocritical thing you have ever seen in your life. Support a third party candidate, or maybe even secretly not support Donald Trump, but pull out of the race and go, well, Donald Trump did give me tax cuts. And we'll be okay, we survived the last 4 years. We might not survive Bernie. By that they mean my money might not survive Bernie. So they are very likely to betray the Democratic Party. The thing that they claimed that they cared about all the time. One last thing about that. You remember what Hillary Clinton supporters called themselves after they lost the primary to Obama? They called themselves Puma. You know what Puma stands for? Party unity, my ass. They never believed in party unity.
Boom.
You're right, you caught me, I was right. So look, and I wanna now predict this for you. If Bernie's the nominee, they're not going to outwardly say they're in favor of Donald Trump. It would be so preposterous and people would be so mad with them. Have you ever talked to any Democratic voters? They despise Donald Trump, right? If Hillary Clinton were to say, yeah, I'm for Trump, heads would explode, and she's not that stupid, and people in the establishment are not that stupid. But look, she's already prefacing for you that, hey, maybe I'll stay out of it. Maybe I'll stay neutral between Trump and Bernie Sanders. Or maybe I'll look to torpedo Bernie Sanders, but not say it publicly, right? And by the way, if Bloomberg runs, easily help him and make sure the Democrat loses the race so I keep my tax cuts. Look, the establishment is filled to the rim with corruption. And so this is just another evidence of it. Now, to the gender issue, she says, he particularly attacks women. Later, she talks about how he attacks Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris. I don't remember Bernie Sanders saying anything about Kamala Harris.
Yeah, neither do I.
That's just totally made up.
Well, but that's the thing. She gets to make these things up and she goes unchallenged. I mean, we challenge her, independent media sources challenge her, but the corporate press that she speaks to never challenges her. In fact, this whole docuseries that they're putting out about her doesn't even go so far as to interview people that she's slandering in the context of these interviews, right? Monica Lewinsky, Bernie Sanders camp. I mean, she just like throws all these jabs and it goes unchallenged 100%.
In fact, they asked the documentarians about it. They're like, no, we did try to talk to Hillary Clinton's opponents ideologically, so we try to find conservatives. Wait, what are you doing? No, the main divide has been within the Democratic Party, and the main people she attacks is not Republicans. Other than Trump, she never talks ill of Republicans. In fact, there's a quote later in the story. She's like, well, if it wasn't Trump, and it was just a normal Republican, I'd have been fine with it. I'll give you the exact quote in a minute, okay? So, no, progressives are the ones she attacks and smears and says all sorts of terrible things about. But to the mainstream media, progressives are invisible. Why would I talk to a progressive? They're not among the powerful. They're not in the club. They're invisible. They're nobodies. Why would you ever talk to a progressive? It doesn't even occur to them. So even as they're punching progressives in the face over and over again in the documentary, in this interview, it doesn't occur to them to talk to a progressive and say, hey, how do you feel about being punched in the face? All right, last thing on the Kamala Harris, Warren, et cetera. So to my knowledge, Bernie Sanders never attacked Kamala Harris, nor have his supporters really talked about her much at all. I don't know if you know this, she's out of the race. Hillary Clinton just did this interview. But Bernie Sanders is so-called troubled today because they say, you're attacking Joe Biden too much. So what happened to particularly pointing out women? So it turns out they're in a primary and they have made arguments against some of the candidates, some of whom are male, some of whom are female. So
look, let's just keep it real. Here's what they want. They want Bernie Sanders to unilaterally disarm in this race, right? They want Bernie Sanders to avoid criticizing, rightfully so, the candidates that he's running against. He has, I mean, look, and I keep telling some of the Hillary fans out there who keep attacking him as divisive and he plays dirty politics. Give me an example. I am more than willing to admit I'm wrong. Show me an example of Bernie Sanders unfairly attacking his opponents on anything that's not related to policy. Because look, we're in a primary. He absolutely should and should continue to go after the records of these Democrats, their policy proposals. That's what the whole point of a primary is. Otherwise, why are we having debates? Why are we even having this discussion, right? But they don't like the fact that he's right, that he's uncorrupted, that he walks the walk, talks the talk, and that he focuses on what he legitimately should focus on, which is policy.
There's no end to their hypocrisy. Later in the interview, she said, "You're probably not going to be treated fairly. Don't let it knock you off your stride." Now, she's just referring specifically to women there, but she mainly talked about herself. I was just treated so unfairly, so unfairly. Okay, now, there's actually some truth to that. I thought that they focused way too much on the emails. The mainstream media goes along with the Republican talking points on nonsense about Benghazi, etc. And so there were some unfair attacks against Hillary Clinton. That is true. Were there some sex attacks on Hillary Clinton from Republicans? Absolutely. What's she wearing? Is she too shrill? All that stuff that happened. Did it happen from the left? Of course not. The left is more liberal, more progressive than the centrist corporate Democrats. But wait, you were talking about people who were treated unfairly in the primaries. Didn't you rig the primaries? Didn't you take stolen questions from Donna Brazile before a CNN debate? Didn't you limit the number of debates with your friend Debbie Wasserman Schultz? Didn't you run a money laundering operation through the DNC?
This is unfair. Okay. You're being so divisive, Jim. Yeah, well, you're being so sexist and divisive by stating what the DNC literally did in 2016.
But you were treated unfairly. Okay, so, and by the way, when they hide behind discrimination, after they do attack after attack after attack, and if you ever criticize them, they go, I'm gonna hide behind discrimination. Well, you know what they do? They actually hurt the cause of fighting real discrimination so much. Because when a woman is treated unfairly at work, doesn't get paid the same amount, or is, God forbid, sexually harassed, etc., then a lot of guys turn around and go, well, okay, well, look at these people, that all these crying wolf. Every time, nobody's allowed to be criticized because they're a woman. Now, that's not remotely true, but Hillary Clinton and others who callously use gender as a political weapon allow that to happen. So wait, did the DNC conspire against a man or a woman? Let's just remember, it was against a man. Did they do it because he is a man? No. But for you to claim, oh my God, I am the victim from the Democratic establishment, is preposterous. So now let me get back to the Republican quote to give you a sense of how Republican Hillary Clinton is. She said, quote, "If I had lost to what I would call a normal Republican with whom I disagreed on many things, but who I thought cared about the country and put service over self, I would probably speak out and say we don't agree about that, but this is abnormal what we currently have about Trump," okay? So she still thinks Trump's an aberration. The other Republicans are great. They put service over self? On which planet? Bernie Sanders is a terrible guy, and I'm gonna call him every name in the book. But my beloved Republican friends outside of Donald Trump, wait a minute, what do you mean outside of Donald Trump? They all back Donald Trump 100%. What Republicans are you talking about? If we had had a normal Republican, well, that would have been lovely, right? But Bernie, we can't have him. He might end the corruption, then what would we do for a living?